Hello and welcome to PlayStation Access. My name is Rob, although for the purposes of this video, I am Roberys Targaryen, a level 3 human warrior currently slicing, flirting and dice rolling my way to Baldur's Gate, the ultimate destination in the aptly named Baldur's Gate 3. Yes, the year's highest rated RPG is now in early access on PS5, but comes out for everyone on the 6th of September, so what better time to introduce you to its world, and who better to do it than Swen Vincke, the game's director. We start with the most important question. Should that 3 in the game's title scare people who've not played Baldur's Gate 1 and 2?
This is a standalone adventure, so you don't have to have played Baldur's Gate 1 and 2, but if you have, you will certainly recognize recurring characters and recurring teams, recurring locations. But if you're completely new to it, it's a great entry into the world of Dungeons & Dragons. So in Baldur's Gate 3, you are infected with a Mind Flayer parasite that's going to turn you into a monster. And as you play the adventure, you're going to start discovering that being turned into a monster has benefits and disadvantages. And so how you deal with that is something that actually has always been the core of the Baldur's Gate series, where it was like, hey, I don't want to spoil it for people who didn't play the first and the second one, but where he's basically dealing with similar themes. And I think that was a very important part of making Baldur's Gate for us, and that make Baldur's Gate 3 a Baldur's Gate game. It's obviously also set in the Forgotten Realms, which is Dungeons & Dragons universe, where the original Baldur's Gates took place. And Baldur's Gate 3 is similar in setup to Baldur's Gate 1, where your adventure starts outside of the city and then you travel towards the city, which is also something that you're doing in BG3.
That journey to Baldur's Gate was originally developed on PC, where a complex suite of powers and interactions spread across mouse and keyboard. One of the things that impresses most about Baldur's Gate 3 on PS5 is how all those options are elegantly squeezed onto new radial menus as the whole screen is recalibrated to be easily read on a TV.
So we completely transformed the UX of the game, the way that you interact with everything in the world, so that it would really work well with controller. It's been something that we've been working on for a long time. I think we have something that's very intuitive now. It's a game in which you can do many things, so we had to find a way to give you access to those many things. But you can actually see already from how it's been received on PC, where people are playing with controllers, it's actually working out quite well. Yeah, navigating the world with a controller is different than navigating with mouse and keyboard, where it's more point and click. So that's why we dropped the camera. It's not fully third person, so you're not going to be looking in the air, but it's very close to it. It feels very natural when you're navigating things, and it's actually my preferred way of playing. So I really enjoy playing it with the controller, being more laid back than sitting behind my desk and doing mouse and keyboard.
What's cool about this, PS5 players enjoying the same complex game as their PC neighbours, is that this wasn't always the way. Say Baldur's Gate to most PlayStation fans, and they're likely to be more familiar with the simplified action RPG console spin-off Dark Alliance and its sumptuous water physics than the knotty PC original. Does Sven see any differences between the two audiences?
The gaming audience in the history of gaming industry has grown up, right? Everybody games these days. It used to be that we were a very small group of people, a small group of nerds that were playing games. Now everybody games, right? So that means that you can make any type of game and there will be an audience for it. And that's, I think it's just one of the coolest things. And you see that now also on console, which you didn't necessarily do that before. Before it was always going to be, it's got to be the most accessible game in the world, and it's got to be very approachable and very universal, and don't make it too complicated, because if it's complicated, people are not going to buy it, and so forth. That's not true anymore. You see really deep experiences on the console. And so obviously you try to make it as approachable as possible, but there's room for games with a little bit more, I don't want to say more depth, because it makes it sound so snobbish almost, but it's just games where there's the core game loop can be very expansive, let's put it that way.
And if you want to share that experience on PS5, Baldur's Gate 3 has you covered.
So Baldur's Gate 3 features split-screen local co-op. You can basically drop in at any time in somebody's game. The coolest is to start together with your partner, with your friend, and just journey through it. And it's amazing, because you are basically capable of splitting the party and going do all kinds of shenanigans all over the place, then recombine, deal with the consequences of what your friend has been doing. And like this, you can have a really unique adventure together. It's really, really cool. The best part is actually you can also play split screen co-op with somebody else. So there can be 2 parties there because you also have multiplayer. So you can have 2 parties playing in split screen local co-op with one another. So you basically, if you have 2 couples playing together, it's great. It's fantastic.
Whether you're playing alone or with friends, you have to choose your character, building a custom hero or playing as one of the pre-made Origin companions. We wondered what Sven would recommend for our first playthrough.
I would recommend when you start playing that you make a custom character and you just basically go with something that appeals to you. I mean, like pick a role, the game will guide you in that role, you'll figure it out eventually. And you'll have a great time, and you'll see that the identity that you picked is going to be respected by the game. When we made the game, we tried to make a game that was going to really be your game, creating your story that reflects the choices you make, but also who you are. And that choice is very important in the beginning of the game. So for first-time players, I definitely would say, like, pick something that fits you really well, and then you'll see you'll have a really good time. So depending on a class and race that you pick in the beginning of the game, you're going to see that you're going to get special dialogue options in the game. For instance, if you would play a Githyanki Druid, it's going to be very different than if you're going to play a Drow Barbarian. So you're going to see people react to where you come from, who you are. Sometimes you will be able to pass things instantly that others would have to fight or have to find other ways through to get around. So it's it has so many of those moments that you start feeling, holy, this is starting to get unique. Like by the time you're in the middle of the game, your adventure is really different from anybody else that is playing it, just because of the choices you will have made, but also who you were. So it's almost as if the screenplay is being written for you while you're playing. So if you would think of it as a movie.
And what lies in store if you do pick an origin story?
If you play as an origin character, you basically start seeing the story through the eyes of one of your companions that you can recruit if you play as a custom character. And so you get different options in the game, you get different stories. You see how your companions understand the world, what's important to them, what's not. It's another way where you start seeing an enormous amount of reactivity as you go through the game. But in addition to your origin characters, then you also have the Dark Urge origin. That is a kind of a custom character, but that comes with a specific story, a specific backstory. I don't want to spoil it too much, but it is very dark. That's why we called it the Dark Urge. And you start playing the game and you just see blood everywhere and you have a strong desire to kill things. You don't know why, you don't know what your background is, so because you forgot. And so you start discovering that as you go through the game. And as you play, you realize that you have a really important role to play in everything that's going on. And it gives you a completely different view again on the entire story. But Dark Urge is something I recommend to players to play on the second playthrough, because you then really see actually, oh wow, that's what happened with that, and I don't want to spoil it, so I can't really tell you.
We won't spoil the Dark Urge path either, other than to say it takes you down a dark, dark path. Because the character does that for you. We wonder if it was maybe designed for people who traditionally struggle with making villainous choices in games as a way of forcing them to engage with everything Baldur's Gate 3 has to offer.
The background of the Dark Urge is really nature's first nurture, right? So you are something and you did things. And the question that the game actually asks is like, well, you forgot about those things. Are you still responsible for them? Because you still did them. The game forces you into that, so it makes you confront that choice. And you can resist the urge or you can give in to the urge, and both come with benefits. If you resist the urge, higher chance that you're going to have friends and allies. If you completely give in to the urge, it might be a very lonely playthrough, depending again on how you're going to be doing it and whether how strong your sense of betrayal is, if you care about betraying people or not, and so forth. So it's it asks interesting questions of you, and but to get people into the right mindset to get to that point where you start asking those questions of yourself, we put you there. So we make things happen to you, and so and they're unexpected, because you don't unless you've been looking at the internet, you don't expect it, you don't see it coming, and so that's really good, because you then suddenly say, holy shit. And I've seen many players play to those moments that we did, and it's always like, holy shit. Right. And then there's a moment of silence, and then you said, all right.
Whatever character you bring into Baldur's Gate 3, one major choice remains: to save scum or not to save scum. Do you follow the will of the dice, or reload your quick save until you get a happier outcome? For our final question, where does Sven stand on the issue?
But I think people can play however they want, right? So I'm a safe scummer myself. I mean, like in every single game. But we did make the game so that you could be able to roll with the dice. So it's fine to roll with the dice, and you have to trust your dungeon master that they're going to come up with something that's going to make the game fun. We did really a lot of effort and tried hard to make that satisfying, and sometimes you will not get what you want, but that's then your adventure. That's part of the uniqueness of your adventure, how the dice went. Did you spend your inspiration points, which allow you to re-roll the dice on particular choices that were important to you or not? In general, if you keep on re-rolling, eventually you'll hit the number that you want to have. We noticed on PC, we completely underestimated how much saves people were going to make, because we have cross saves, so we have a cloud storage for all those save games. It's millions and millions of saves. It's crazy. It's really, really crazy.
Whether you plan to build a safety net of 1 million saves or go through the game as an acolyte of cruel fate, your journey to Baldur's Gate 3 begins on PS5 on the 6th of September. Let us know in the comments what you're going to play as, and subscribe to PlayStation Access for much, much more on the biggest RPG of 2023. We'll see you again soon.
PlayStation